The day had been normal enough, filled with calls and a steady stream of paperwork. By the time evening rolled around, everyone else seemed to disappear in a hurry, leaving the office halls empty and silent. I had to finish an important report, so I stayed behind. I admit I hoped to wrap up by 7 p.m., but time slipped away from me. When I finally checked the clock on my computer, the digits read 9:15 p.m. That was later than I had ever stayed before. I leaned back in my chair and rubbed my eyes, struggling to focus on the rows of numbers in front of me. For a moment, I allowed my gaze to wander across the open workstations. Every desk lamp and overhead light was set to an energy-saving mode, which made the large room look dim and lifeless. Most nights, cleaning staff would bustle around by now, emptying bins or vacuuming carpets. But on this night, they were nowhere to be seen. The office was too quiet. I stood up, grabbing my file folder, and heading toward the copier in the next room. My shoes tapped on the hallway tiles, echoing in a strangely hollow way. At every step, the motion-sensitive lights flickered awake, illuminating the corridor in short bursts of brightness. The walls were lined with company posters about life insurance and health coverage, but in the uneven lighting, the cheerful images looked oddly distorted. The minute I finished making copies, the office phone at my desk rang. The sound startled me because I had assumed no one would call this late. I picked up, half expecting a coworker or a client with an urgent request. But there was only a faint static on the line. I gave a cautious hello, but got no answer. Then it clicked off. I tried not to read too much into it. Maybe it was just an automatic system glitch. I pressed the receiver down and went back to my papers. A short while later, I felt the hairs on my arms prickle. Something made me glance at the corridor. That was when the overhead lights out there flickered in a rapid sequence. For a split second, I thought I saw a figure move across the hallway, a form that disappeared just as quickly as the light steadied. My heart gave a small leap. I stepped away from my desk, curiosity and nervousness mingling in my mind. I walked over to the hallway, but it looked empty. Just the usual doors leading to conference rooms and manager offices. The motion sensors should have kept everything lit once I was walking around, but a few lights at the far end went dark before I reached them. That was odd. The sensors typically stayed on as long as they detected movement in the hallway. Still, I brushed it off, figuring maybe they were on the fritz. I had no clue how to reset them, and the building's maintenance staff had gone home hours ago. Returning to my desk, I forced myself to focus on the report one last time. If I hurried, maybe I could leave by 9:45. My eyes skimmed the words, but a nagging feeling kept pulling my attention back to the corridor. I heard a muffled sound like a soft shuffle of feet. Instinctively, I looked up toward the glass partition that separated my workspace from the hallway. Through the tinted glass, I thought I saw a faint shape standing near the corner. But when I moved closer, that same corner was empty. The only sign of any presence was a slight rustle in the air, almost like a breeze, though no windows were open. I tried to calm myself by thinking about the usual workplace ghost stories people tell in older building stories about creaking floors or random flickering lights. But I knew this building was relatively modern, not the kind of place with a long haunted history. Even so, I couldn't shake the uneasiness. As I stepped fully into the hallway to investigate, the motion sensors in the entire stretch went out, one after another. It was like a row of dominoes in reverse, each overhead light switching off just before I reached it. Standing in the near darkness, I couldn't stop my heart from racing. There was still some illumination from the emergency exit signs, casting a dull green glow across the walls. I thought I heard footsteps further down, but they were so light I almost doubted my own hearing. I decided to follow the sound partly out of caution, partly out of a strange need to prove to myself that nothing was actually there. My path led me past the closed door of the HR office and around the corner to the mailroom. By now, every motion sensor along the way had turned off, leaving only the faint emergency lights flickering overhead. The mailroom door was slightly ajar, which was unusual. Normally, it locked automatically. I swallowed hard and pushed it open. Rows of metal mail slots and boxes lined the walls, along with a single table for sorting letters. Nothing seemed out of place except for a slight breeze that brushed past me. It felt cold against my skin, yet I couldn't find a source. No vents were blowing air, and the door to the hallway was behind me. Suddenly, I heard a low hum from somewhere deeper in the building. It sounded electrical, like a dormant machine coming to life. The lights in the corridor behind me flickered again, and the next thing I knew, the entire hallway behind the mailroom door went completely dark. My mind raced as I realized that if I stayed in the mailroom, I'd be isolated with no light. So I quickly stepped back into the hallway, pulling the door shut. The overhead fixtures were out, but the glow of the emergency sign near the large meeting room at the far end gave me just enough light to move. That was when I saw the silhouette, again a tall, slim figure at the opposite end of the corridor, near the meeting room door. It didn't move. It just stood there, as if waiting for me. My throat went dry. I took a shaky step forward, and the figure seemed to blur at the edges, like it was dissolving into the shadows. Then, without warning, the figure flickered away, as if it never existed. I paused, trying to slow my breathing. Could it be someone from cleaning staff? A security guard? But why would they vanish like that? I decided enough was enough. I needed to leave the building and come back in the morning to finish my work. The flickering lights, the unknown presence, it was all too unsettling. I walked toward the main reception area, past rows of cubicles that looked eerie in the halfway darkness. My footsteps clicked on the tiled floor, each sound amplified by the complete stillness around me. When I reached the reception desk, I found it vacant, as expected, but the security monitors behind the counter were still on. On one screen, I could see a live feed of the front entrance, the glass doors, the small lobby, and beyond it, the street outside. At least that seemed normal. But another camera caught my eye. It showed the hallway I had just come from. It was hard to see in the dim lighting, but I caught a glimpse of something moving near the mailroom door. A dark shape, tall and thin, drifting along like smoke. My stomach clenched as the figure turned its head, or what might be a head, toward the camera. Then it flitted out of view. My hands shook as I frantically tapped the security console, trying to see if there were recorded clips. It wouldn't let me access any playback without a password. I cursed under my breath for not learning the security codes. At that moment, the monitor showing the hallway feed began to flicker wildly. Then it went blank, replaced by static. I felt a weight in my chest, a sense of being trapped. I needed to reach the elevator or the stairwell. The insurance office was on the 8th floor of the building, so I could take the elevator down to the lobby. Heart pounding, I headed for the elevator bank. My mind raced. How could any of this be happening in a modern office tower with cameras, lights, and standard security? It made no logical sense. At the elevator bank, a single down arrow glowed, but the panel's digital display was frozen. It showed the elevator was on the 10th floor and not moving. I pressed the button repeatedly, but nothing changed. The overhead lamp above me buzzed and flickered, making me cringe at each flicker. The environment felt alive, as if the building itself was responding to my fear. I spun around to find the emergency stairwell instead. It was at the far end past the copy area. The moment I started walking, the entire row of lights above me shut off. I mouthed a silent prayer for the stairwell door to be unlocked. Step by step, I edged my way through the darkness, guided by the faint light of the exit sign. Each footstep felt louder, each heartbeat pounding in my ears. Finally, I reached the door for the stairwell and yanked it open. Relief flooded through me when it actually opened without resistance. The stairwell was dim, but at least the emergency lights were still working. I rushed down the metal steps, each step clanging underfoot. My plan was simple. Go down 8 floors, walk right out the building's main entrance, and breathe fresh air. But halfway down, on the 5th floor landing, I heard a rustling behind me. I froze, glancing back up. The door on the 8th floor slowly creaked shut, steel scraping metal. My heart leapt into my throat. There it was again, the whisper of movement, a soft swish of air like fabric brushing concrete. No way was I staying to see what that was. I picked up my pace, nearly tripping as I descended each flight. The lights flickered in the stairwell now, too. One by one, they went out in quick bursts. It felt like something was traveling downward with me, taking the lights out as it came closer. By the time I reached the second-floor landing, I was practically running. That's when a shape appeared on the landing below, a tall silhouette, faintly visible in the flickering emergency lamp. I skidded to a stop, heart hammering so hard I thought I might pass out. The figure seemed to watch me, though it had no distinct face or clear features. My mind screamed at me to turn around. I turned back to go upstairs, but the lights above me began shutting off one after another. In a burst of desperation, I pressed my shoulder against the door to the second floor, pushing it open. Light from the corridor spilled into the stairwell, and the silhouette vanished in the sudden brightness. I stumbled into the hallway, panting, my pulse louder than ever. To my surprise, the second floor's corridor was lit and calm. The motion sensors worked fine, no flickering overhead. It was as if nothing had happened. I almost sobbed with relief. Without wasting any more time, I found a second elevator, one I knew served the lower floors. I pressed the button, and it came quickly. The sense of dread that clung to me began to ease as the doors slid open. I stepped inside and jabbed the lobby button. The doors closed, and I could hear the gentle hum of the elevator car descending. The ride felt long, each passing floor indicated by a gentle ding. My mind spun with questions. Who or what was that figure? Why did the lights fail so strangely on the 8th floor? Was I dreaming? By the time the doors opened to the main lobby, I felt dazed. The lobby was brightly lit, the front security desk manned by a guard who glanced at me with mild curiosity. I walked straight out, not saying a word, too shaken to explain. Once I was outside, the cool night air soothed my sweaty face. The quiet streets seemed peaceful, safe compared to what I felt upstairs. Since that night, I haven't stayed past 6 p.m. without a few coworkers around. I still can't fully explain what happened, whether it was a malfunctioning system or something beyond my understanding. But sometimes when the office starts to empty and the shadows lengthen, I remember that strange figure in the hallway, the flickering lights, and the motion sensors going dead one by one. It reminds me that even modern places can hold moments of inexplicable fear. And each time I see the corridor lights begin to dim, I wonder if it's returning, lingering just beyond my line of sight, waiting to appear again whenever I'm alone.